Well, hello, everybody. We're here for a special Shear Line Negotiation Mastery podcast live at the Real Deal Forum at the Metropolitan Pavilion in New York City. And I'm here with Ben Willig, our amazing, as we like to call him, dad. That's the director of agent development, right?
That is my favorite title. Both at Life at Home and at the Brown Harris
I love it too.
So,
yeah. We share that love of being a dad, but we're obviously, we love having you at Brown Harris Stevens, and I'm thrilled to have you back for a second time on Shear Line.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. We're going to have a little bit of a different episode and be riffing here live at the event.
Riffing live at the event. Now, the last time that you were on my show, you came in thinking that you were going to be on like a hairstyle or a barbershop podcast.
Good memory.
Which I loved. So I might remind you that this is a negotiation podcast. So I don't know what you prepared.
Got it.
I could use a little bit of a trim, but you may have prepared with your scissors. But I'm gonna make you work your mind here, because what I want to do in the half hour that we're together here is offer our audience some real practical ideas around strategies, around tactics, around negotiation, specifically around collaborative negotiation. And I know you and I share that love of collaborative negotiation, but I want to do it with this idea of looking at deals that recently have been in the works that you've been coaching on.
Yep.
And then I'm going to bring in some as well that I've been doing as an agent, as a coach. And we'll just chat about some.
We'll just keep chatting like we were doing, off stage here. Yeah. I think, what had me really excited about coming here, and thank you so much for having me on, is, I get this so often, and it's come up a bunch the last few days, which is, hey, I have this like really aggressive client. I have this crazy person, coming at me with this. And, my mom always told me, you can't reason with crazy.
That's right.
But
it's good advice.
In the real estate business, we have to suck it in and sometimes like really figure out how to, work with crazy.
Yeah.
And, a lot of times we really don't want to, but people are like belligerent, coming at you. I mean, how many agents or just people have had that type of thing happen?
Yeah.
So, I think the most important thing is the agents who do a great job at it, there's a mastery of the self, before the mastery of the craft really comes.
Yep.
So, how you actually switch gears can, disassociate from, what's actually going, on with that, I think is so key. And I think prior we were talking like you actually put some nice color and context, to that. I mean, maybe you want to like hit on what the formal thing is, and I can kind of give some of the more of the like, hey, here's how we see it in real life too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting when we were talking about this earlier, I love this because in New York City real estate, we probably deal with this type of a negotiator or agent more than probably any other market. And in collaborative negotiation, especially if you've ever read Getting to Yes, Roger Fisher, William Ury, they talk about separating the people from the problem. And that's really what we're doing here. Your mom had her saying about you don't what is it? You
can't reason with crazy.
My dad used to say, don't get into a pissing contest with a skunk. And that's, I think they're kind of two sides of the same coin, right? And the idea is that really, if you are focusing on the positions that someone is taking, the person and the behavior of the person across from you, you end up getting into a positional bargaining argument. You end up getting into a pissing contest with a skunk. So what you really, as we talked about, what you really need to do is separate the people from the problem and understand that none of this is meant to be, should be taken personally for you. You got to separate this out, understand what the wants and needs are of the other side. Now, as we were talking about, you got to say, okay, well, how do I get them what they want?
I think another important thing, like in that mastery of the self, is you have to really be able to let go. So I'll give like a specific example. It's actually one of my past clients.
All right.
The agent who handles, this person for me and has handled them for years, they were the type of people that very aggressive right from the first day I met them. And I think because I was patient and could put up with them, they kind of are the types that realize like, hey, there's only so many people, so we're going to stick to these people, which is like stage 5 clinger client, which, maybe is a good thing, maybe not. I don't know.
And you can imagine in every facet of their life, this is probably a common recurring
every
theme.
facet, you just know that everything's a yelling match, a pissing match with a like everything is that. And so this agent's been handling it, for years now with these folks. And because it's such a common occurrence and such a common, just aggressive nature at them, they kind of have the attitude with them that's like, hey, you want to go work with someone else? Like, please be my guest. That'll make my life, better.
Yeah.
But this agent is also such an empathetic person for all their other clients. And that is one of the things that makes them so great as an agent, because you can feel other people's emotions, that they had to go through enough pain with this person to get to that place.
Yeah.
But yet, with a lot of the other deals that they're working on, they're still too wrapped up and caught up. And I was like, well, why don't you just treat them the same as you are with this crazy, aggressive client? And being able to switch that, thing in your brain from being that empathetic person to being willing to let go, not attached to the outcome or what happens with that person in a relationship. It's not a reflection on you. It's way, way, way easier said than done. So, I mean, I'm curious strategies too from your coaching. Like, how do you get people over that hump?
Well, I mean, you mentioned part of it is that idea of if you're an empathetic person, what you risk doing in the case where somebody is overpowering you, or if they're really an aggressive negotiator or an aggressive person, is that it's almost easier to say yes and just let them have their way.
Yeah.
And what the problem with that is that will never end. You'll constantly do that, and at some point you've got to take your power back.
Yep.
And you've got to, and so there are a couple things there. First is you've got to understand how to take your power back. You've got as a person, you've got to make sure that you are adhering to your own personal goals. What is okay? What is acceptable and what is not acceptable? And you've got to be very clear on what that is for you. And as soon as those bounds are overstepped, if you have an aggressive negotiator coming at you and they're hard bargaining and they're screaming and they're yelling, you say, I'm sorry, well, this is not the way I'm going to negotiate.
So if I'm an agent, right, and I'm coming to you, I say, hey, Eirik, all that sounds great, but I mean, what do I do? Do I just, because a lot of times it's always a first when, for an agent, when these types of things are coming up. Like, do I start setting my boundaries when I'm in a highly triggered emotional state like that? Or is this a conversation I have separately and decide on these boundaries? Like, just to play devil's advocate from the agency, I want to see, hey, how do I actually then set these boundaries for myself to know when I need to step in to set the proper thing?
That's a great question. And this goes back to what you said, which I love, is that it's mastery of self before mastery of the craft. This is something that happens well before you step into that conversation. And when you understand what your personal boundaries are and your own personal power, there's situational power and there's personal power. And as I like to say, personal power, no one gets to take from you. And the more you understand what your personal power is, the more you'll step into every situation and you'll be comfortable, if you're not tied to the outcome, as you said, you'll be comfortable saying, nope, this is not happening. If it's situational, you know what your client's minimum goals are, right? And as soon as something doesn't meet those minimum goals, you know that you've reached the end. You're not tied to the outcome, and so you're willing to put your foot down for yourself and for your client in those situations. So knowing your personal power is a huge part of it.
Get your personal power. I had to work.
You got it.
All I could think of during personal power was I'm powerful. But you know what's great about that though? I joke with some fun voices, but one of my because with all this coming up recently, I'm gonna have this person remain nameless because they probably don't want other people knowing that they put pictures in their phone of silly things of people that really trigger them. But it's someone very special to me. I'll send this afterwards, and I learn a lot from, and we have a great time together. And they shared with me recently that hey, a great thing to do, very practically, right? To be able to get yourself, I think, back in the space. And I love this. I hadn't, thought about this in a while, is give that person, if they're triggering you, a character. So someone that was really triggering them, they have a mouse picture, in a phone. So then every time that comes up, it's almost like a pattern interrupt and kind of puts you back in, a different state, right? And you might have hey, when I need to jump into my personal power space,
I'm Arnold Willig. I'm going to regain my power now.
Now I know when I get on the phone with you, if I hear the Arnold accent, I'll be like, oh, he's
Eric, don't give me this. Give me the deals now.
Oh, man. If I could do my Danny DeVito impersonation, we could be twins. All right. I got another one.
We just interrupted the audience there on that one.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
All right. So here's one that I wanted to bring up. Because, as I coach agents as well, and I have a team, so I talk to my own teammates on the Excelsior team. One of the things that came up is this idea that, here was a situation. There was something that happened in the inspection. It was not a major issue. It was something that was a somewhat minor issue, but the buyer really wanted the seller to partake in the fix. It was something that they weren't expecting. It's a couple $1,000s. And so the buyer asked the agent, which is the person I was talking to go and ask the listing agent politely if their seller would be willing to partake in that fix financially, right? And so when they came to me with this conversation, they said, well, I went over and I asked them, and they basically said very, very quickly, no, that's not going to happen. It's as is, and we're not doing it. And so they went back to their client. And they said, yeah, unfortunately, they're not going to partake in that repair. And they wanted to know, how could they have done something? How could they have done anything differently there to get a different result? And so one of the question that I want to pose to you is this idea of, we're always negotiating, right? We're always in negotiations, but we have to have a delineation or a separation between when we're actually negotiating things of value and when you're just asking a question and getting a response. Because in that situation, that listing agent is very easy because you've basically given them a choice. You have a yes or a no. Are you going to partake in this financially or not? I'm just all I'm doing is asking you to give me a yes or no. The likelihood that I would get a yes from them, even if they're willing to partake in the repairs, is very low. We're not negotiating. There's really nothing for them to lose by just saying no. So that's what we get is the no, but we haven't even started negotiating this yet. We haven't talked about things of value. We haven't given any idea as to why they would want to partake in this. So, I wanted to get your thoughts on that. How do you look at that when agents throw things out there to the other side as if they're negotiating and just take the answer that they get back as gospel or as an anchor, so to speak?
And, I think the key thing with that is timing is everything, right? In life, in negotiations.
Yeah.
When you ask something can have totally different results and outcomes.
Yeah.
Right? And so to give everybody else another visual, right? It's kind of, for most sellers, when you show them the money, show me the money, then they'll do the repair. It's so we're what do we mean by that? Well, what I would always advise my clients on when we go in this exact same setting is that's great. I know you feel that way. We want to ask this, and we'll definitely get that in.
Yeah.
Let's get through everything else so they know we're good with everything. We're done. We're ready to go. And let's put that check. Let's show them the money right in front of their face and say, hey, the last remaining thing is we want this done. Your success rate goes through the roof when you do that type of thing. But a lot of agents, and I see this pretty regularly, they just middle throughout the process asking a bunch of questions, group things together, know the most impactful point to present that, and timing is everything.
Oh, I love that. I love that because you're right. I mean, and again, that goes with what we used to call when I was training agents at the former company I was with, we used to say, make it real.
Make it real.
Make it real.
Yeah.
Right. If things are hypothetical or kind of in the ether and it's just kind of ambiguous, you're not getting the real answer from the other side. You're not putting them in a position where there is something to lose by saying no, as opposed to when it seems like there's nothing to lose to say no, you get that no. But if you got the check in front of you and it's hey, we're one step away from doing a deal here. Well, this is what we need from you.
I'm going to devil's advocate myself on this, too, because I love
do it.
Answering something, but then, I definitely have another saying 100%. strong beliefs, very loosely held. Like I'm always willing to change my opinion or
Great,
challenge
that's what I
myself.
love.
Like if you're going to challenge other people, you better challenge yourself.
Love it.
So, so on this, I'm sitting here listening to this and I'm like, yeah, guys, that sounds great, but I'm in a bidding war right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a buyer that, yeah, they're willing to come up, but they also want whatever the thing is, this piece of the negotiation, the deal, something in like the apartment. But there's 6, 7, 8 other people, who are doing it. So you lose a big leg on that. I mean, all that sounds great, the timing and the delivery and make it real. Like we're making it very real, but we might not have that leg to stand on. So what do we do in that case?
Absolutely. And that just, it does go back to timing, because you've got to look at goes to situational power, right? We talked about personal power, situational power. When you're in a highest and best, one of the things I love to walk through with my buyers is that the fact that every value element does not have a one-to-one dollar value. So when you're asking for something of the other side, if it's a repair and it's going to cost $2,000, you asking for that repair may have a higher dollar value to them than it does to you. So you're saying all we're asking for is $1,500. Well, no, you are asking for $1,500, but if they feel that you're insulting the
emotional
renovations
stress,
they did, right? That may have far more than $1,500 of weight to it to them, and it may have a negative impact far greater than $1,500. So, hey, if it's $1,500 we want, and we want to look at the net, let's just bake that into our net and then see if we're still competitive with that net.
Yeah.
Here's another
Finding
example.
another way to get it there if you know that that's going to be, one of those things that, really raises the temperature. And honestly, usually the agents are going to have a much better, the intuitive, the empathetic people, better sense of what those things are, what's going to raise the, the temperature for that. And then trying to communicate that to your client is an interesting thing. Because to them, it's almost like the reverse for the client who's asking for it. It's like, they're like, it's only $1,500, and to them it's like a $5 thing,
right?
And to the other person, it's like a $50,000 thing. So not only are you negotiating on this $1,500 thing, but you got two people that weight this completely differently in their minds. So
100%, and like you said, in reverse, I had a situation where it just so happened that my buyers knew the people who used to live in the apartment next door to the one that was for sale. So it just happened that they lived in that building and they were neighbors with the current seller of the apartment that we were bidding on. And so my buyers went to them and said, hey, can you give me any intel on the sellers? Anything that the listing agent's not telling us that might be important to them. Well, it turned out that seller had been railing against the flip tax in that building for years. So he had this aversion to paying the 2% flip tax that building had in place. He's been trying to fight it, remove it, and it unsuccessfully. So we were like, oh my God, this is beautiful. We can adjust our offer so that the net on our offer is still the same. But what we're going to do, instead of adding 2% to the purchase price in our best and highest offer, we're going to offer to pay the flip tax.
Oh, I love that. I love that. A creative solution.
Yeah, you think about that. For him, he can walk around going, I didn't have to pay the flip tax. I got the buyer to pay my flip tax.
And he values that way more in his mind than that type of thing.
Yeah.
And really, it's only 2% of the price, which we would have done anyways, in our negotiation.
Yeah.
So you made me think of something. I know we probably have to take a break at some point.
Oh, yes. Thank you. All right. Look at that. I've lost all host capacity being live. All right, we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
Looking to stage a property but on a tight budget and timeline? Stage with Stage and Fold. Stylish, lightweight, foldable, 3D printed cardboard furniture that looks real. Quick delivery and easy assembly. Staging starts at just $199 a month per room, and setup takes less than 30 minutes. Contact us today to stage smarter, sell faster, save thousands with Stage and Fold.
From residential and commercial closings to litigation, Romer DeBoss is your full-service real estate law firm. We blend big firm knowledge with boutique-level attention, delivering outcomes that exceed every expectation. Contact us at romerdeboss.com.
All right, and we are back. We hope you enjoyed that break, but now you're going to get a little bit more of me and Ben for the next 10 minutes or so. So
DJ
buckle up.
negotiation this up.
Okay.
So you made me think of something.
All right.
And, you know, with the apartments next door and combining, there are so many unknowns in New York City real estate, right? And the first thing that I heard when you started telling me that story was, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to apply with the city to combine apartments and do all these types of things, or buildings coming up across the way. And so, you know, I'm real curious, right, on, okay, situational power, personal power, saying all the things that we talked about. Well, now, when you have a buyer, renter, whoever, seller on uneasy ground because there's so many unknowns with the future of the thing that you're trying to negotiate on, I mean, what are some of the best strategies to also coach on that?
Okay. Well, first and foremost, remove as many of the unknowns as you can. And I think this is a trap that a lot of agents fall into. What I like to say is buyers and sellers don't need certainty. They don't need guarantees. Hey, if you could give them a guarantee, of course they want a guarantee. But we often get caught up in this idea that people need to know everything that's going to happen. They have to remove all risk and create 100% certainty. When you don't, what you want to do is provide as much clarity as you can. You know, on one of my last podcast episodes, I had Jake Feldman back on, and we talked about this framework of 3 things. What do we know? What do we think we know? And what do we need to know? What are the things that are definitively true? What are the things that are implicatively true? Assumptions that we're making, or things that we're kind of we're seeing that the patterns, and then there's the things that we don't know. We need to go get more answers. And I think that's when we need to take that framework and go, all right, there are a lot of unknowns, and unknowns cause risk, and unknowns cause anxiety and unease in our clients. So let's eliminate as many of these as we can, and the trust value with that client and your value as an agent shoots through the roof.
So the analogy that I always think of that I would use with agents, so I'm realizing in this podcast episode that clearly I'm a more visual and voice-oriented person with this. So I would always have in a deal a surprise jar. I would tell people that, so I'm just going to put your framework in a nice visual for everybody.
I love it.
So I would always have a surprise jar for every client. And some clients' jars are bigger, some clients' jars are smaller. And there's only so many unknowns you can fit in that surprise jar before all of a sudden the water starts to overflow. And as an agent, you know when that surprise jar has overflown. So that's why, like, when I had that visual in, I always wanted to, like, again, I was doing all those things without that very nice academic framework.
I like putting academic frameworks on things.
Academia. Oh, yes, Eric, that's very shallow and pedantic of that
I forgot
client.
my Harvard time.
Yes. So, with that, you got to try and, again, you try and answer as many things as possible, because inevitably there's going to be things that are not in your control.
Yeah.
And which kind of ties back to how we started. So much of this process in real estate and in life, outcomes and certain things and what people do are not in your control, but we take it as such.
Yeah.
So plan on that.
Yeah.
Plan on the unknown. You can control the controllables. You can control looking up all the information that you know, right, in your framework. And know that, like, look, maybe I should be reading this person's surprise jar. How many things in this process are they going to be able to fit in there, with this? And some people, it's very small.
Yeah,
and other people, it's very large. So, and everything in between. So
Yeah.
that was always the visual that I use with that.
I love that. And as you say it, what I'm thinking is that, the crow putting pebbles into a jar full of water to get the water to, there's already a certain amount of water in there, right? What can the client handle? And the closer the water is to the top of that jar, the more pebbles you put in. Even if it's a few pebbles, it might overflow. And then some people, they could take on a lot of pebbles. And so I love that imagery. What I love more about it is this idea that we need to not only know what we think is in the jar, but we need to understand what our client has put in the jar. And I think that a lot of agents are really familiar with what they see in the jar, but they don't take enough time to go, all right, what are the unknowns? What are the surprises? What are those things that are causing anxiety for my client that they may not be telling them? And the more we can get into, get them to share with us those things, even if your client is the most left brain, logical type A person who doesn't like to talk about emotion or doesn't like to think that there's any emotion in a real estate deal, when you can get them to tell you what things might be of concern to them, what things are on the corner that they're anticipating that could be risky to them, the better off you're going to be.
So you made me think of another interesting client.
All right.
Right? Here's the client, and I've gotten this one before too, right? Where, because inevitably, just everybody, I don't care who you are in a real estate transaction, your emotions could get away from you. Even the best of, people. We've seen it with everybody, right? There are clients who, no matter what, are very coy, close to the chest, don't offer much, right? We talked about the crazy client coming at you, and that's a different type of dance, both with yourself and them.
Yeah.
But now you have that person like I've had some French clients in the past, and for whatever reason, the French like to just keep it, the Swiss are another, type like that. I used to work with Swiss, and everything is secretive. Super sweet people, but, so now you can see that maybe there's things going on that could be, causing some emotions, but that person isn't giving you much. They're not communicating. They're not saying anything. I mean, how do we as agents break through on those types of individuals, or just let it go?
Yeah, and I think that you don't want to let it go. I don't think. I mean, and some of it, like you said, there are a lot of cultural differences or cultural norms that might cause someone to take that approach. It's not that they can't warm up. It's not that they are unwilling or like they'll never give you the information that is going to help them if they give it to you. You've got to give them a reason to give you that information, and that I think is.
So you think reason, not time?
Well, it could
a combination of both.
It could be a combination. It could take time, right? It's all about how you build trust and what level of trust you build quickly. In some cultures, if we're talking culturally, there has to be a bond that is not a professional bond, that is a personal bond before they're willing to do a deal with you, share information with you, do any of that. They want to make sure that they trust you as a person, that they know your character. And if that's the case, you need to work on having that trusting relationship from a character standpoint.
I'll share a fun story. Fun stories in relation to that. And since I brought the Swiss up before, I think of one of my favorite all-time clients. I love this family. As an early agent, it was like my first few years in the business. I had just done like a couple sales deals, and I sold this like $2 million apartment at the W downtown in the financial district. Okay. And I came up from Middletown, Middle America, things like that. And they invite my wife and I to go over, have a dinner, and I'm thrilled that I just sold this place. Like, at this point, it's one of the bigger deals in my career. Sure. I went on to do much larger, but at that point, it was pretty meaningful. And I'm like a kid in a candy shop sitting in this place, and I'm like so happy, best time in the world. And so they're from Switzerland, and they give me this, this green box. And I guess they're close to the Rolex factory in Switzerland. Wow. And and so they gifted me a Rolex that I still have to this day. And I go to my wife after we leave, and I'm like, because again, my idea of an expensive watch is like whatever I saw in the glass watch case at Walmart when I was growing up. Right. So I'm like, honey, I mean, this has got to be at least $400 or $500.
Yeah, like I saw somebody selling one on Canal Street for like $18.
Yeah. So I looked up what it was later. It was way more than $400 or $500.
Yeah. Right.
But anyway, so we had a great relationship with this family. Continue to keep in touch with them over the years. Super sweet. Their kids ended up doing like a lot of real estate development later on with stuff. And, in the first process, like we got through everything, but it was a sponsor unit. So they liked that because they didn't have to provide anything. And then, years later, when they were looking at investment properties, to your point, like it was kind of a combination of both. It took years.
Yeah.
It was a very deeply personal relationship with them. And there were certain reasons that were going to greatly benefit their family, like really buying at some good times in New York City, that then all of a sudden it would start to flow and come in terms of that information, which, one of my favorite quotes is like, if I'm going to devil's advocate myself, like, Ben, that's all well and good, but I might not have 10 years to do this type of thing. John Maynard Keynes said, like, look, in the long run, we're all dead. So
he's right. Turns out he's right.
So I don't know, just a fun story. And, you know, it kind of highlights that point. And, you know, again,
I love the story, but here's the thing. We absolutely can accelerate that timeline.
Okay, how?
By understanding by understanding on the timeline that you had with that client, what was it? What was it that tipped the scales so that client actually had the trust and faith in you where they would never go with anybody else? You were going to be their guy no matter what. And that they were willing to gift you a, several $1,000 gift at a closing table, right? That's the several $1,000 gift came well before what you believe was the ultimate trusting relationship, right? If that happened, so we can understand what it is that the client needs so that they, in their own self-interest, why does it make sense for them to trust you? Why does it make sense for them to put their faith and trust in you, uniquely you, and only you? And to get them to that point where they understand who you are, your character, your competency, all of those things in a 6-month timeline.
Yeah,
and I'll tell you, I think that separates incredible salespeople from good salespeople, is being able to truncate that timeline.
And if I look at anything and have like a, one thing I say to kids and like a good thought to maybe like, end this on is the quality of your questions are the quality of your life.
Love it.
And I see people and agents now too much like not asking good enough questions, not knowing how to ask the right questions, the good enough questions, because that really, gets to the crux of all that.
Yeah.
So, when you're in that relationship, how can you ask better questions? How can you get to all these things? And that is a skill and that is an art. It is not, something that just naturally comes to people. So the quality of your questions is the quality of your life. Like, please go out and try and be curious and ask better questions, both of yourself, as you can probably see me doing here on the podcast today, and, and of others. So
yeah, no matter how much we know, no matter how much we think we know, no matter how many deals we do, you and I both know this as people who have been in the business for, this is my 20th year in the business. And I am still learning every single day new things that make me a better leader, a better professional, a better agent, a better colleague. So I'm totally with you. And if you have that curious heart, if you are asking questions with the curiosity of a child, ceaseless curiosity, as I like to say, you're never going to stop finding those new ways to build trust and build trust a lot more quickly than maybe you're used to building it, and truncating those relationships so that you accelerate your potential, you accelerate your ability to negotiate, you accelerate your career in real estate. So this has been great.
I love it. I feel like I learned here today. I got some more personal power on this episode.
You got a few of your character voices out to the audience. If you are a casting agent.
That's really the only reason I come here.
Yeah. If you're a casting agent out there looking for a voiceover.
I'm not your guy.
All right, Ben, how can our audience find you?
If you look my name up and can't find me, you're probably not searching on the right search engine. So please feel free to email, reach out on, any forum that I'm on. I try and remain a little bit more undercover, but the people that know, and but anybody can always reach out. So
awesome. Well, hey, to our audience, thank you for taking this ride with us. This is a new unconventional type of a podcast that we've done. If you like this type of podcast, if you like these this format, comment, like, subscribe, send us a message to let us know that this is something that you like. And you can find me on Instagram at Eirik the Expert, or on Instagram at archway.partners. Thank you very much, and we'll see you on the next Shear Line episode back in the studio. Enjoy your day. We'll see you next time.
What do you really need to know about buying or selling a home? First, it's serious business, and it's complicated. There's a lot of money on the table, and emotion too. You need an agent who knows the ropes. So, whether you're buying or selling your home, work with professionals who have a mastery of the craft.